Hello, sixth grade. So, starting today and for the rest of the week, we are going to be focusing each day that you are in the back on a current issue or a current topic that is going on. And then we are going to be watching a video on it and then answering a worksheet that has math problems related to these concepts. So, you're going to be applying the math skills that you learned this year and previous years to broader topics. During these videos, you'll be asked questions. Your exit ticket grade for the day is going to be how well you score on those questions. So today I thought it would be really applicable since you all just finished your final round of standardized testing to talk about standardized tests. Standardized tests have been a big topic of conversation recently with the recent switch to Common Core or the PARCC test that you guys have all just experienced firsthand. So the big question is, are these tests effective? Are they effective in promoting student achievement? So we're going to weigh the pros and cons of these tests. On your paper, you have a table to fill in the pros and cons that I talk about. So the pros, or the good things. First, 93% of studies on student testing found that it had a positive effect on student achievement. Second, most parents do approve of standardized tests and think they are effective. Third, standardized tests work for China. They have a very long history of using standardized tests, and they are number one in the world for education. So why can't it work for us? Fourth, standardized tests are unbiased. If Mrs. Perez and I were to create a test for you guys and a teacher at Schaumburg created a different test for their kids, a teacher at RCAA created a different test for their kids, and then we all graded them differently, we wouldn't be able to compare scores across the three schools. With standardized tests, you can compare scores across the country because it is the same test and it is all graded the same way. And lastly, they motivate both students and teachers to be successful throughout the year. Some cons. So it has actually not improved student achievement. Since there has been this huge push for standardized testing, we've actually gone down as a country in the rankings across the world. Second, it causes severe stress in some students, as some of you may have experienced, and especially in the younger kids. Third, it encourages teachers to teach to the test. This means that instead of teaching the most valuable or important information, it encourages teachers to just teach children what they will see on this test or the skills they need to learn for the test. So we're no longer teaching for life, just teaching to the test, or that's what some people believe. Fourth, it narrows the curriculum so that more time is spent on math and ELA and less time is spent on science, social studies, art, band, all of the other subjects. You guys can notice this at DTA as well. You guys spend far more time in math and ELA than any other subject. Lastly, it's an unreliable measure of student and teacher performance. There are a lot of factors that they've found of correlation with student performance on these tests, including race, demographics, socioeconomic class. All of those are correlated with how well students do on these tests. In addition to that, these tests just measure very specific skills and don't necessarily give a well-rounded picture of a student's performance. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is watch sections of this John Oliver video. John Oliver is a comedian, and he recently did a sketch all about standardized testing. So we're going to skip around because not all of it's completely appropriate, and it's a very long video. So we'll start at 3:54.
Well, the explosion of testing can be traced back to the 90s, when you probably remember stories like these about the state of public education.
When 40 nations recently took the International Math and Science test, American students scored near the bottom.
And that must have hurt, especially because you knew the French children weren't even trying. Go on, play with your silly numbers. They tell you nothing of the true nature of the soul. I weep for you. In response to statistics like that, in response to those kind of statistics, President George W. Bush, on just his third day in office, announced his No Child Left Behind program. It passed Congress with bipartisan support because, of course, it did. Voting against No Child Left Behind is like voting against No Puppy Left Unsnuggled. What monster would do that? His name is Patches, and he needs love! The program was designed to be data-driven and involve testing children every single year in order to identify and fix failing schools.
An accountability system must have a consequence. Otherwise, it's not much of an accountability system.
It's hard to argue with any of that. Unfortunately, accountability is one of those concepts that everybody's in favour of, but nobody knows how to make work. No Child Left Behind increased the number of federally mandated tests from 6 to 17, and the fixation on testing was something which our current president seemed to be against as he ran for office.
Don't tell us that the only way to teach a child is to spend too much of a year preparing him to fill out a few bubbles in a standardized test. We know that's not true.
Wow, that man knew how to pander to teachers. And you know what else? There should be pool tables in the teacher's lounge. And every year you should be able to slap one parent. Vote for me. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Vote for me. But once this president took office, he didn't get rid of tests. Instead, he added his own education initiatives like Race to the Top, which encouraged states to adopt the Common Core. He does have a point. He does have a point. If a test fails to reflect ability, there are human consequences. Because one shy Florida 8th grader who had a near perfect score in her advanced language arts class was asked to leave it last year due to her inexplicably low scores on the FCAT. And last fall, she told a school board meeting exactly how that felt.
Every year I do good in school, but I get low test scores on the FCAP, and it feels like a punch in the stomach. This is unfair, and I don't want to lose my opportunity to take my advanced classes or get better education because of this one test.
That is just awful. I take back everything I said about wanting to take a standardized test. In fact, you know what? Bring out the monkey! Bring out the monkey! Look, we've had more than a decade of standardized testing now, and maybe it's time to put the test to the test. The original goal was to narrow the achievement gap and boost our scores relative to the rest of the world. Well, a 2013 study found no support for the idea that No Child Left Behind narrowed the achievement gap, and our scores on the international tests have not only failed to rise, they're slightly down. And I do not want to hear what that French kid thinks of those results. Oh, all this time and all this money, and your rise to the top has been, how you say, a meandering jog on a treadmill. But all of this calls for a little of what both presidents asked for when selling their reforms.
Higher standards are the right goal. Accountability is the right goal.
An accountability system must have a consequence. Otherwise, it's not much of an accountability system.
Right, so let's look at that, because as far as I can see, this is a system which has enriched multiple companies and that pays and fires teachers with a cattle birthing formula, confuses children with talking pineapples, and has the same kind of rules regarding transparency that Brad Pitt had for Fight Club. So for Pearson, the other companies, and all the lawmakers who have supported this system, the true test is going to be either convincing everyone it works or accepting it doesn't work and fixing it. Because at the risk of sounding like a standardized test scorer, your numbers are not good. And if it seems unfair to have your fate riding on a complicated metric that fails to take institutional factors into account and might not even tell the whole story, well, you're not wrong about that, but you do not get to complain about it.
All right, go ahead and finish up the rest of your worksheet, and good luck. At the end, you'll have a chance to state your own opinion on standardized testing with an RAGEGE paragraph that you guys all have learned in ELA at this point. All right, good luck finishing it up.